Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all. Myself Vaibhav. I welcome all of you to today's session of Visual JForex in which we will be continuing to work with the indicator normalized average true range. This is the third and the final part of this ongoing series involving this indicator. So now let us head to the Visual JForex board which has been developed by the Dukascopy Bank SA. In last two sessions, the developments so far include this instrument subscription where the Euro USD is being used as the instrument of choice. Afterward, the position amount was defined at zero. These two NETR blocks were also utilized to look for the appropriate entry points. To look at the price volatility, we are taking the help of get historical candle blocks, and then to define certain parameters, we have utilized these calculation expression block, and on the lower side we have these conditions in place for the execution of the buy trade. In this trade command block, one parameter is missing, the order validity time, which we are going to keep of 1 hour, which we will be defining in this session. So that is unfinished job from the last time around. Now I will give you a refresher of sort of what the logic is. For any sell trade to execute, we want enough of volatility, enough of price moves on the lower side. So for that, we will be comparing the NATR output value and the difference between the last hourly NATR output and the penultimate hourly NATR output should be more than at least 0.02. So if here we check, the difference is not really more than 0.02. So this time around, the trade might not have happened. So we will have to look for, I think in this case, the difference is indeed more than 0.02. So the sell trade might have happened somewhere around this value. And as I have said, we are not going for the market execution. We are rather utilizing the pending open order, and we will be placing the order at half of the difference between the highest and the lowest point of last hourly candle, and that means we will be placing order somewhere around here with the stop loss of fixed 25 pips and a target price of 50 pips, giving us a risk reward ratio of 1 is to 2. And to make sure the momentum was sustained in last hour, we are also considering the difference between the closing value and the opening value, and that should be more than at least half of the difference between the highest and the lowest point of last hour. So the logic is fairly simple. Now we have to do is get some calculations done, and afterwards we will define the conditions for the execution of the trade. First thing first, we define the order validity. For that, the calculation expression is needed, and I will have to disconnect it here and join it to the next block. For defining the order validity of 1 hour, we are going to need last tick time. Alright, and in 1 hour there are 3.6 million ticks. So I will have to create a variable which we will name TT with the value of 3.6 million. I hope I am right in my counting. If not, you can correct me. So here it comes, and this, as per the Excel convention, we have to do is A1 plus A2, and we have to be careful while defining this output value. The data type needs to be of long. So for that, I will create the variable in this trade command block and then assign it the value of this result. I will name this variable OVT, and its value is going to be derived from this calculation. Okay, so now we are done with the order validity. So we now can move on to defining the conditions for the execution of the sale trade. For that, we will have to calculate the difference between the opening value and the closing value of last hour, and as I have said, it will need to be more than half of the difference between the highest and the lowest point. So this time around we need to subtract the closing value from the opening value. For the buy trade we had subtracted the opening value from the closing value, but this time the condition needs to be reversed. So I take calculation expression block and we will need candle 15, candle open, and closing value. Okay, so here it becomes A1 minus A2, and this will be candle difference. All right, so we have this in place. We now need to define the sell entry point, which is going to be higher from the closing point of last hourly candle. So for that we need one more of the calculation expression block, and we are simply going to add half of the difference of the highest and the lowest point of last hour to the lowest point of last hour candle, and that will be our sale entry point. So I need candle 15, candle low, and to that we add this variable. Here this calculation is simply the difference between highest and the lowest point being multiplied by divided by 2, so we arrive at half of the value. Okay, this will be A1 plus A2 I will name it SE. Now it's time to join it on the lower side. Okay, now let us start defining the conditions for the entry, which include Looking at the difference between the NATR value, and we have already calculated that in the last session. So I will take this output value, the NATR difference, and it needs to be greater than 0.02. So here first input greater than second input. Afterwards, the last hour's closing value needs to be lower than the opening value. So we have to compare candle 15, candle close with the candle 15 candle open. So this becomes first input less than second input. And now we have to compare the difference between the closing and opening value, and it needs to be more than half of the difference between the highest and the lowest point. So this difference which we had calculated in this block, the sale candle difference, needs to be more than HDV. Okay, and with these conditions in place, all we have to do is add two more if blocks to define the exact entry point, which is the last hour's closing value, and then when the price starts to dip below that value, the initiation will happen. So for that we have to compare the closing value of the candle 15 with closing values of candle 16 and candle 17 respectively. Two blocks have the shift value of 1 and 2 with the candle period of 10 seconds each. So we need to make sure that the candle 16 candle close is below candle 15 candle close, whereas candle 17 candle close was above the candle 15 candle close. So in these two blocks, candle 15 candle close is going to be the common input, and it will be compared. So here first input less than second input. First input greater than second input. I will place these blocks on the lower side. Now it's time to bring in the trade command block. Here we have to define the input values. This is going to be a sell limit order, and the entry point is this SE. Default instrument remains as it is. Lot amount, I will define it at 0.1 million. For Euro USD, 2 pips slippage is fine. Stop loss and take profit, we leave it as per the default settings. We are not going to tinker this time around. But if you want, you can make it dynamic, or if you feel like. You can change these values as per your requirement. Order validity, we had already defined this variable, so we assign it now. So with this, our job of defining the parameters, input parameters for the trade command block is done, and all we have to do is join it just below the last if else statement. Okay, with this, our sell side of the equation is also complete. And let me check if the trade iteration flow is going till the very end. For that, all we have to do is color code this trade flow line, and yes, as we can see, it is uninterrupted till the very end. That means our algorithm is ready and we can test it to see if it is efficient or not. All you have to do is export the file and then import the same file to the JForex platform in the Java, and there you can carry out the testing on the historical data for any duration of time. So that's it from my side. I hope you have been able to understand the logical as well as the execution of the algorithm using this indicator. Name is NATR. And for further coverage of the market developments, do check out the Dukascopy Analytics page. We are also available on the Facebook. You can reach out to us there. For carrying out the testing, you will need to use the JForex platform. The link has been provided. So that's it from my side. See you next time around. Till then, have a good time.